listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome.
Welcome to Second Wind Podcast. I am your host, Joyce Buford. And me and my guest are here today to give you the encouragement you may be needing to play full out. And that is getting to know yourself. That is the main topic today. That is the one we're going to explore today. It's just going to be fabulous. And it's going to help propel you into adapting for yourself a big dream. Where do you want your life to really be? Are you there? Or are you still reaching for that dream? Now, also, I like to inform you just how to get yourself propelled into the second wind experience. Now, you know, and I've repeated this before and again, that second wind always has the most fabulous guests that are going to help you propel yourself forward. They share their stories so that you can take these and learn from them and shorten your journey. So there's no exception today. You're going to love my guest. But second wind is about connections, okay? It's connections and support. And that is what this program brings you. My guest today is Rachel S. Heslin. Now, she has been immersed in psychology for over 40 years. Her father, a clinical psychologist, taught his children his craft. Rachel was first introduced to Neurolinguistic Programming, which they've shortened to NLP for your convenience and mine. It's the concept when she was 9 years old. Goodness. Rachel is currently the author of 2 books, Navigating Life, 8 Different Strategies to Guide Your Way. And her second book is The Rituals of Release, How to Make Room for Your New Life. Through her work, The Fullness of Your Power, she loves helping women who feel like they are their own worst enemy. Helen helps students to learn to embrace all parts of themselves so that they can live a happier, more successful, and more deeply fulfilling lives. I can't think of anything else we'd like to ask for this life that we're here living today. So welcome, Rachel. I'm delighted you're here.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes. Now, you know, I have studied NLP a little bit along my path, but I know there's somebody out there that has not. So they're going to go, what is that? So could you explain to us what that is?
Well, the way that I see it as its core, referring to neurons in the brain,
Yes.
linguistic, the words and the ways that we communicate. Programming refers to the way that the stories that we tell ourselves deeply impact how we experience our lives. And if you change those stories, your entire life can change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, and we all seem to get a few stories along the way. They start pretty early, from our mommy, daddy, sisters, anybody, teachers, everybody puts a little bit of their stuff on us. And so we end up with a lot of baggage.
We do. And
yeah,
even just the idea of growing up, when you're a little tiny kid, you don't have enough life experience to understand context.
Mhm.
So we're trying to figure out how the world works and what is our role and where do we fit in with all of this.
Yeah.
And some of the things we put together aren't necessarily the way that things actually are.
Yeah.
But we get kind of stuck in that little kid perspective.
Mhm.
Do you mind if I go into the physiology of it? We had
Oh,
talked about this
no.
could be kind of, we actually go through brain changes. There's one that happens about the age of 3, one about the age of 7, and throughout our adolescence. And the structure of the brain itself changes. Where when you're just born, all of these neurons are going everywhere and branching out and spreading, and you're capable of anything. And then as you start to learn things, your brain says, okay, here are the neural pathways that are most useful. So let's strengthen those. And the ones we're not really using,
Mhm.
those actually atrophy and get absorbed back into your system in order to strengthen the primary ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that something similar happens about, as I said, about 7 and then adolescence. But the reason why this is important is because anything that we learn prior to one of these brain states
Mhm.
gets locked in and feels like truth. So
Mm.
we don't even know that there's stories that we made up to try to make sense of things.
Right.
All we know is it feels like this is the way that the world is. This
Mhm.
is who I am.
Mm.
And one of the things that I love to do is simply help people become aware of their stories and
Mhm.
just look at them and
Mhm.
go, huh, well, that's interesting.
Mhm. I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it possible for an infant before 3 to lay in a bed crying for wanting to be held, to be nourished, to be whatever? Is it possible for us to even get a thought or a belief that early in our development?
It's not necessarily articulated as as an abstract thought, but
Okay.
it can be experienced as a lack of safety
Oh,
or a
oh,
lack of security. My
yeah.
needs are not being met.
Yes.
And there is that sense of a fear along with it of, oh no, I am not cared for, even if there's no explicit articulation of it. And
Mm,
what becomes interesting is as the child grows older, does it switch to I cannot rely on other people? Or does it become something like I am not worthy of love?
mm, yeah.
And different people have different interpretations of what that core feeling of I am not safe means as they try to make sense of it.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
People
So
are weird.
yes. So that psychologist that said just let the baby cry till he goes to sleep, is that good advice?
Um, it is based upon an assumption which I do not personally share.
Yeah.
It is based on the assumption that children need to be trained in
Mm,
order to do what they need to do.
mhm.
And there are a lot of people who share that basic assumption. I
Yeah.
want to say straight off that
Mhm.
my most foundational personal assumption is that none of us are capable of knowing capital T truth.
Mm,
As human beings, there is just too much stuff out there for us to really deeply understand everything.
mhm.
Therefore, I am aware that it is possible that everything I believe could be wrong.
Mm,
Having said that,
mm,
I therefore choose to believe that everybody comes into this world whole and complete and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And that part of the process, and to a certain extent, the purpose of living,
Mm-hmm.
is to go through the experience of, as you said, we get all these stories from other people. We get it wrong because we
Mm-hmm.
don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we go back to who we truly are? I
Mm-hmm.
believe that we are drawn to contribute to the world in a unique way that is ours. And that whenever you get things out of the way of that expression, it naturally wants to blossom.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my belief. That's going back to the child. I believe I was into attachment. I'm still into attachment parenting. We've got a kitten who is now 3 months old, and it came into our life when it was a week and a half. It was found under somebody's porch.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that one of the reasons that it's doing so well is for the first couple of weeks, it was never put down. We held
Really?
it. We transferred it from person to person. We were doing bottle feeding.
Uh-huh.
And that kitten feels so safe
Mm-hmm.
and is able to be. And that's what I wanted to do with my kids. I mean, we slept with our child.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people who have concerns about the safety of sleeping with a child.
Yes.
And my husband and I took precautions for that safety. Neither of us drink, neither of us smoke, both of which are correlated with things that can go wrong.
Right.
We're both healthy. We don't have health issues. And when he was really tiny, we got one of these bolster things where he would lie on his back in between us in the bed.
Oh, yes, those. Yeah.
Yeah, but we could put a hand on him so he knew we were there. He
Right.
didn't feel alone. If he cried, there was somebody right there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the combination of the physical safety and the
Right.
emotional encouragement and support,
Right.
which I think lends it to how I work with clients now, because in a lot of ways, I'm working with that child inside them. Because let's face it, even the best parents are human.
Yes.
And I know there are several times I did not live up to my own expectations when it came to parenting. There are certain things I look back on and
Yeah.
it's like, wow, you were not your best self in that situation.
I think
And
we've all got those.
oh
Oh,
yeah.
yes. And I'm so sorry for those.
Yeah. I mean, I tell people that my own parents were excellent role models for
Mhm.
being good parents because they helped pay for my therapy as an adult.
Yeah.
So
But how does one go back if it is? And I want to explain, there was a whole generation of children that got that do not go pick them up from
yeah,
that psychologist. I don't know if he was a psychologist.
yeah.
Was it Dr. Spock?
I think that's the name that comes to mind with that. But I know
Yeah.
Dr. Spock was definitely the person. This is how you raise a child.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And it seemed seemed very
Knowledgeable.
important in a lot of
Yeah.
families.
Yeah.
So how do you now, dealing with a person who has had an implantation maybe
Yeah.
of that fear so early in their life, how do you work with them to comfort that and send it
That
on its way?
you actually hit a nail on the head. How
Uh-huh.
do you comfort that child within?
Uh-huh.
When people ask what I do, I'd say I help people embrace all parts of themselves. And I use that word embrace very deliberately, because there are a lot of people who talk about loving yourself, but love is very abstract and can mean so many different things. But to embrace, it gives a visceral sensation of holding somebody in your arms. And when you can imagine holding yourself when you were a child, this both gives comfort to that child and lets them know they are loved. They are not alone. You are here for them. So that part inside of yourself gets that emotional nourishment, and it also strengthens the fact that you are an adult. You are the one who is giving comfort. You are more than just that frightened child. And while that frightened child may be part of who you are, it is not the whole and totality of your essence.
Yes, I've spoken and experienced this as well. During my divorce, one of those positions you get in when you're so afraid of the situation is you get in the bed and you roll up in the ball and you rock yourself.
Yeah.
And it's just so, I've visited with other ladies that have experienced this. And I said, were you in that ball too? And it was just such an experience, because it seems to be a natural thing for us to do.
Yeah, I love the child pose in yoga, where you basically just fold over on yourself.
Yes.
And what I like about it is that it's the duality of the holding yourself in, but it also opens up the chest so that you can breathe as well.
Yeah. Interesting. So when you work only with women, or both men and women?
I work with anybody who feels like I talk about being your own worst enemy.
Right.
If they're dealing with self-sabotage, when they know they're excited, they're about to do something new, and they watch themselves turn it down, or they watch themselves do something that they know is not in their best interest, and they don't understand why they have these patterns. And so anybody who has that sense, I love to work with them and show them the beauty that they have such difficulty seeing in themselves.
Yeah. That experience is so frustrating to go through. I mean, I've done it myself to myself.
Oh yeah,
we've all done it.
Yeah, let me put it this way. Anything I ever write about in my books, talk in my presentations, work with a client, is stuff that I myself have struggled with.
Right.
So I know different people have different experiences. Not everybody is going to be drawn to me, but I do have a proof of concept of at least one. These are things that have worked for me. And if they work for me, maybe they'll work for you too.
Yeah, for sure. In your 2 books, the first one you wrote was about 8 different strategies to guide your way. So I'm going to use this word, you can correct it. It's almost like a how-to manual both of the books?
It's kind of a how-to. One of the things about navigating life is I used the word strategies instead of steps.
Yes.
Because rather than saying, well, just do this, and you'll have a perfect life, what I discovered is that there are 8 big areas that you need to address when you're taking on a large project or you're moving into a larger aspect of who you want to be and the type of life you want to live.
Yeah.
And if you have strategies within each of these 8 areas, then it gives you a really robust framework that is strong, but flexible, so that you can kind of modify it as you go to really support where you are and what you need in each movement to get you to the next step.
Yeah. What are the 8 areas? Do you mind sharing those?
Not at all.
Without
I
buying
love
the book
talking.
right now? We'll go get it.
Well, the first thing, and it's interesting because the very first one, I've had a lot of people tell me, that's it, that's what I need, is what I call releasing shoulds and other people's goals.
Oh, yeah.
And this goes back to, you're talking about taking on other people's stories.
Yes.
There are obvious shoulds and other people's goals. When people come to you and say, well, can you do this? And okay, it's difficult to say no and that sort of thing. The ones that I'm really interested in are what I call the hidden shoulds. Those are the things that we have taken on that we don't even realize aren't really ours. They're because it'll make my dad happy, or, well, this is what people are supposed to do, and all that sort of thing. So if you want to have a life that is fully lived, then the first thing you got to do is identify, where am I living somebody else's life?
Do you want to know one of mine?
Yeah.
You're going to laugh. This is so, in the realm of things that are most important, this is not an important thing, but it was to my father.
Yeah.
And so he liked a clean car.
Yeah.
So the daughter I am, I kind of feel uneasy after a while as I realize my car is dirty inside. It's been sitting out, so it needs a good wash. It's funny how that, I know it doesn't stop me, or does it send me rushing for the laundry room, for the car wash.
Yeah.
But it does have an emotional impact on me.
Yeah.
Which I think is strange.
It is. And being aware of that is really useful because you can identify and say, oh, it's just a story. I can deal with it.
Thank you, Father. Thank you, Dad.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, I got in the way of the strategy.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
See, the second one is like, once you figure out, okay, that's other people's stuff, well, then you have to create your own vision. And different people see visions in different ways. And I use the word see because for some people it is actually visual. Some people have very specific, I want to have this type car, this type house, One of the things I invite people to do is to sink into the essence of that desire. What is it that you really want? What would it feel like? Who would you be if you were living that type of a life? And it's that visceral connection to who you want to be that can help guide you when the specifics don't always match what you thought they would turn out to be.
Yeah. Yes.
Now,
good. I like these.
Yeah.
They're hitting home.
Yeah. And it is finding that balance between the essence and the specifics, because the next strategy is figuring out your action steps. What are you going to do to move you in that direction?
Right. Yeah.
And it's important to have a plan. I happen to be a really big fan of David Allen and Getting Things Done. And one of the reasons I really like his approach is because he breaks it down into different areas, such as here's your big picture, and then here are your projects, and then here are the individual tasks that you can actually check off a list. And I find that a very useful way of organizing things, because sometimes when you're looking at the big picture, it's, oh my goodness, where do I even start?
Yes.
And even when you say, okay, here's my project, like, for example, I'm not sure when people will be listening to this, but at the time we're recording, I am putting together a program, a group coaching program for releasing shoulds in other people's goals.
Oh, good.
And looking at it, it's like, okay, so this is my program, but what are the tasks? What do I need to do to create it? And then breaking it down into, okay, weekly, here are the handouts. Here is the theme for each week. Here are the handouts that I need to create. Here are the presentations I need to create. And each of those individual items are tasks that can be accomplished, whereas putting together a program is the full project.
Yes.
So
So how would my listeners get an invitation to that?
Well,
can they just sign up at your website?
Yeah, honestly, my website is probably the easiest way to get in touch with me. I do have a mailing list where I send out tips and strategies for little things I found useful.
Oh, good.
For how to live life more dynamically, how to actually live life.
Yes.
And I'll be and I'll probably end up, if you do sign up for the list, I will definitely have a discount for people on my list because I love you guys.
Okay, now her website, just since we're on that,
is
the
fullnessofyourpower.com.
Very good. Fullness of Your Power.com. Like that.
And I just want to, as we were talking about embracing all parts, I define the fullness of your power when you get that committee inside your head to start working as an actual team.
Oh, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
So how long does it take to actually change what I'm going to just coin a negative thought that we picked up along the way? What is I know it's very hard to say, well, it's going to take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, because we're all so different, and it's all also bedded at different levels in our body. So how do you approach somebody on this?
What I find, rather than measuring specific change, I encourage awareness and deliberate choice. As I mentioned, so many people don't realize that their stories are just stories. So the first thing I would have a client do is just notice patterns. In this you are in this situation. What are you feeling? What is coming up? What are the thoughts? And just start noticing what your knee-jerk reactions are.
Yeah.
Then the next step is to recalibrate physically. Take a deep breath. You notice, you pause, take a deep breath all the way down into the abdomen and just pull it in and feel it. Listen to the breath. Look at something specific and the detail of it, and listen. If this is something you can do, it only takes like 10 seconds, 10, 15 seconds. Try to listen to something really close to you, and then listen to something far away, and then come back to
noise.
Like a noise, specifically, like right now, I am in my office, and if I listen, I can hear a car going by on the street somewhere out there.
Yes.
And then if I bring my attention inward, I hear you. I hear my own voice. I can hear my breath. And what this does, the combination of the, okay, I'm in reaction, deep breath, it oxygenates, having the awareness of the breath, feeling it in the belly, listening, and having the far away coming and then inward hearing something. What that does is it actually triggers a brain shift and brings you more strongly into the current moment. One quote I love from Mark Twain is that a cat who has sat on a hot stove will never again sit on a hot stove. However, neither will they sit on a cold one.
Really?
Because they say stove is bad. So how many of our reactions are based on memories of different situations?
Oh, that's so true.
So by doing this breath, automatic, okay, pause, breath, listen to something out there, listen to something here, look at something close, come back into this moment now, and then ask, okay, hold on a second. What is actually going on? What is coming up versus what is going on?
Right.
And it's that assessment.
How does, I have another question. How several, divorce rate is grown to 50% in the United States, if not higher. So how one of the pieces that I feel women deal with is the breaking of the trust. How does one not carry that forward? And is it kind of like sitting on the stove and because the trust was broken when one man, we applied to all men? Is that common, or what do you?
My father's response to that is generally, trust them to do what? And it's not just trust, but it is an expectation of a should, where it should be a certain way. And if it is not a certain way, therefore this means a meaning that we assign to it. So the first step, again, is that awareness. What are the stories of expectation? The second step is forgiveness. Because the truth is that every single one of us is human. Every single one of us has done something to hurt somebody else. I am speaking of myself. I have done things that I look back and am ashamed and mortified at the pain that I have caused in others. And actually, I'd like to go into two things here, because forgiving other people is different from forgiving yourself. And they are both equally important if you want to be able to live a dynamic, evolving life. When you forgive,
please go into that. It's a big one.
It is. Because forgiving other people is letting go of their ability to hijack your emotions. If you are carrying a grudge, then anytime you think of them, there is that constriction inside. There is that you're allowing them to control how you feel. And it's the releasing of the trigger and saying, you're human. Yeah, you screwed up. And I forgive you for it. And one of the things I've come across is a lot of people conflate forgiveness with saying that there was nothing wrong and that it was perfectly fine. But my take on it is, if it were perfectly fine, there would be nothing to forgive. So saying, I choose to release this energy. I forgive you. And it allows the other person to be human. And it also reinforces that it's okay to be human. It's okay to make mistakes. Now, when it comes to forgiving yourself, there are actually 3 steps involved. If it is going to be an authentic self-forgiveness, as opposed to just brushing it off, because some people say, oh, well, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
But if you are sincerely want to become a better person, the first thing you need to do is be honest. What did you do? What did you not do? What do you wish you hadn't done?
Yeah.
And is it one of the things, I'm just going to do a slight digression because it is so important within the context of relationships,
Yes.
is differentiating between intention and impact. We can have the absolute best intentions in the world, and it can still hurt somebody else. It can still have an impact that was not our intention.
Right.
And while it is important to recognize the intention, because intention matters. If intention didn't matter, we would not have different penalties for murder versus manslaughter.
Right.
But the impact also matters. And if somebody was hurt by what you did, you need to respect that that is also important. Because the second part of self-forgiveness is trying to make amends. What can you do to make it better? And this is especially difficult when, if I can get deep here, what happens if the person is no longer with us?
Right.
If somebody dies, how do you make that better? And even if it's not an obvious apology or trying to make things better for that person, what can you do to make things right inside yourself? Whether it's paying it forward to someone else, whether it's the commitment to becoming a better person, learning from it, what can you do to try to make it better? And that commitment leads to the third part, which is you need to change. You need to become a different person because of the experience. You need to become more aware, make different choices. You need to learn. And at the point that you actually learn from it and move on, then you have truly forgiven yourself so that you can move on. And one of the things I've found, one of the reasons why people don't forgive either themselves or others, but let's just talk about forgiving yourself. They're afraid that if they forgive themselves, then that means it was okay and they're a horrible person and yada, yada, yada. But what that by refusing to forgive yourself, that reinforces the story that you are incapable of change.
Right.
Whereas if you go in saying, yeah, I really screwed that up. That was not who I wanted to be. It was bad. But I am making a commitment to do my best to make it right, to try to make it better, and to become a better person going forward. And by better person, I mean more congruent with my higher self and how I want to show up in the world.
Right.
And that can be different for each person. As long as you are on the path of increasing congruence, then you're on, that is the path for you.
Okay, Rachel, my question now is this, because that was great. Did you all like it out there? Wasn't that good? Um, is that what, am I getting that confused with a defining moment? A defining moment is something that changes our path and gets us going into a newer direction. And many times we achieve and grow and become more of who we really are. But is that different from the forgiveness process?
Any moment can become a defining moment
Okay.
if it strikes you that way. I mean, for me, I have had multiple defining moments
Yes.
of the, I mean, one of my defining moments, I was fired from a job because I messed up so badly that the only way that the company could save face is to get rid of me.
Oh,
And
I
it
hope you
was,
weren't young and innocent.
oh my goodness, I was devastated.
Yes.
And that's actually, I mentioned that a lot of the work I do and I share is from my personal experience.
Yeah.
I mean, let me put it this way. My mess up was so bad. The friend who had recommended me and gotten me hired was asked to resign.
No. Oh, that's really cruel.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was absolutely, it was, like I said, it was devastating. How do you come back from that?
Yeah. Right.
And it was these 3 steps that got me through it so that now I am in a place
Mm.
where I am full of gratitude, not necessarily for the experience itself,
Right.
because heaven
Yes.
knows I really wish I hadn't done that.
Yes.
But I am grateful for the opportunity to help others.
Yeah. Interesting. Now, is that one of those 2 books
That
about the forgiveness?
actually, that's going to be the book I'm writing next year. Because
Very
the
good.
book I'm currently working on
Uh-huh.
is about grief.
Oh, that's good too.
It's called Grieving the Lost Future, Reconciling What Is with
Uh-huh.
What Should Have Been.
Okay.
And the whole, I mean, one of the people talk about the grief of divorce.
Yes.
You went in, I mean, most people go into marriage expecting, well, this is the person I'm going to share the rest of my life with.
It's that Cinderella story all
Yeah,
over.
happily ever after.
Yes.
And when things don't go that way, all of a sudden, all your pictures of the future are gone.
Yes.
And that is where grief comes in, because the truth is that nothing can be taken for granted. We don't know the future. We cannot count on anything. And that is a truth. But at the same time, we need to have goals. We need to have plans. We need to have dreams. We need to have things that pull us forward. We need to be able to work on assumptions that the sun is going to rise tomorrow.
Yes.
And the way that we reconcile having dreams that we can pour all of ourselves into and really go for it and take those chances with knowing that it may not happen. That process is grief, because it is grief that allows us to honor the meaning and the intentions of what has been lost,
Right.
of what the future no longer is. And by honoring it and integrating that sorrow into the warp and weft of the tapestry of our lives, it makes us stronger. It makes us more deeply grounded and rooted so that we can move forward with a new dream.
Yes, I certainly over the past 2 years, the nation has learned a little bit about grief.
Oh my
No matter
goodness,
if it's
yes.
losing loved ones, losing their high school graduation ceremonies. Everybody has had a grief.
Yeah.
And so I think it's so important that we understand it's not something to run from, but to take it and to grow from it.
Oh, yes.
It can't be the end. It is a new beginning.
Yes, it
So
is.
I walked away with a whole different view of grief. And I hope others have, but your book is timely. We need it. So you
Well, that's
must
I
leave immediately and go write.
yeah, well, it's one of those things that I was writing it a couple of years ago, and I was stuck on, it was coming out too clinical, so I needed to go off and recalibrate where I was coming from. And then COVID hit, and all of a sudden I have all these other things to write about that I have to include in the book. And it's like every day is more things that need to be addressed by the book. So I'm hoping to at least have it. I'm going to be working on it this year. It'll probably come out next year.
Yeah.
And then once that one actually does come out, the book after that is called Permission to Go On, The Power of Self-Forgiveness.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, I gotta go back to
Audience
writing.
waiting for it. Here we go. Well, you get to come back for each one of those. We must come back
Yes.
and talk about the books. Well, I always hate to see my shows end. And you have been a delight in that you've shared so many good ideas and so good thoughts. We didn't actually get through all the strategies, but I think that you all out there probably got a pretty good idea.
And they can always buy the book if they want the rest of them.
I assume they're on Amazon, right?
Yes, they're all online retailers. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, it's in the Apple Store. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, in closing, there are a couple things I usually ask my guests.
Okay.
So I'll ask you these questions. Would you share any pitfall to avoid on their journey that you experienced? A pitfall that you found yourself slipping into, maybe?
The biggest one is allowing my ideas of what something should look like get in the way of my appreciation and gratitude for how they are.
Yes. And as you were saying that, another word, and I wanted to know if you could use this word sometimes in that, the should versus our expectations. Are they not very similar?
Yes, the expectations pretty much are a flavor of should.
Yeah.
And you can have positive expectations with the awareness that if they become too rigid, they can become a trap.
Yes. Yeah, I can see that. All right. What is your greatest success?
My family. I adore my kids. We have my husband and I, we're actually coming up on, oh goodness, we've known each other 26 years. Been married for most of that. My eldest kid is an amazing writer. They're going into their senior of high school. Then their friend that I adopted is also turning 17 and also a senior in high school. And they're two friends that I consider our expansion packs. And the kitten, and I love being a mom. I love watching them evolve into themselves, and it is so much fun. And I think my greatest success is just trying to provide encouragement and an environment so they can be themselves.
Yes, but I have a feeling you're doing a very good job. See, all of that, not since 9 years old, that's been preparing you for this role.
Oh, yeah. Good thing I like it.
Yes, it is. Well, if you know you're good at something, then you usually do like it, don't you?
Yeah. Well,
I
actually,
love
I want to go back to something you said about stories we pick up
it. Uh-huh,
along the
uh-huh.
way. One of the stories that I used to have is that work was supposed to be hard. And if I enjoy something, I shouldn't get paid for it,
Oh, that's
which
so wrong.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And fortunately, some years back, I realized, but wait a minute, people really like when I help them, and
Right.
I like helping people. And if they would like to show their appreciation for it financially, I've decided I'm more than happy to allow them to do so.
I think that's very nice of you.
Yeah.
I do. Well, I want them to know that you are available on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, but they're best to go to your website.
Yeah, probably best is my website.
Yep.
Also, I've just recently started doing weekly Facebook Lives on my Facebook business page for the
Oh,
Fullness of Your Power.
okay.
So every Friday, 11 a.m. Pacific time, because I'm out
Yep.
in California,
Hmm.
I'm on for just like 10, 15 minutes talking about, here are some things to think about as you go through your day.
Yes. Yeah. And so they would go to your website
Yeah,
to
my
get that.
website has links to everywhere. Yeah.
Oh, but the Facebook, of
The
course, go to your
Facebook page
Facebook.
is on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually have a YouTube channel as well that I've just started. I'm going to be doing a series on depression, just very short
Oh.
videos, because when you're really stuck in it, it feels
Hmm.
like everything is overwhelming. So I'm
Yes.
putting together a series of just little like 5-minute, what are tiny things you can do to slow down and stop the spiral so you can start coming out again.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. But you do coaching.
Yes, I do. In addition to the group program that's coming up, I also do have some slots for one-on-one coaching
Yes.
that um, are very, at this point, I'm very flexible because I love co-creating with whoever comes to me.
Hmm.
And it ends up being a very transformational experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if somebody is interested in getting to you, they again go to your website.
Yes,
And then
I try to make it simple for people. Just go to the website, whatever you want. I've got
yes.
articles there. We've got copies of other interviews I've done. There are resources, and you can even contact me directly. So yay. And there are links to my books there as well.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Go there by all means. The fullness. So
The Fullness of Your Power.
of yours. I want to make that. I don't know. I want to run those two
There are
S's.
too many S's.
Yeah, it's throwing me off.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you so much for being here.
You
It's
are so very welcome.
real pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you.
Now, to you out there listening, you have picked up so much today. You may need to re-listen to this, and you may want to share it with a friend. Somebody that's struggling, somebody needs support. They certainly need to know how to get to Rachel's site so that they can do their own journey with her in whatever form that takes. But this week, while going through the week, think of some of the things that she shared with us today and re-listen to it and hear what you might want to address. Forgiveness, loving yourself. There's any number of valuable situations in this show. So anyway, I thank you for being here today, and I look forward to next week where we will get together again and share some great information. Thank you for being here.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.